Hello. Hopefully everyone's doing great today. Sorry for the 3 or 4 stream attempts I did today. My computer was just acting super flaky. Really need to stop trying to tweak the settings over the weekend. Eventually I'll get it right. I think I just need to build a whole new studio in my home office to get it working. So today, I'm gonna if you've been following us along on the stream or watching any videos, we've been working on this contacts application. Essentially, lets you add, remove, delete contacts, plus manage images for it. So I can upload a contact image, and we've done all that over the last 4 or 5 months. Well, after looking at the code over last week when we created the Azure function creating the thumbnails, I noticed that we have imaging stuff in more than one place, which is okay to some extent since it's a quote unquote demo application. But what I've been trying to do on this stream overall is kind of show, real world situations. So here's a real world. We started off with an application. Someone came to us and said, well, let's go and add storage to it. So we add the blob storage, and then, well, now we need to create thumbnails. And then we're looking at the code and it's like, oh, we've got image code in like 4 or 5 different places. Maybe it's time for us to consolidate it. So that's what we're going to kind of do today. Walk through the breaking down of that code, moving it into other places. So let's start by taking a look at our project. So right now we have the data in our web UI, and I believe in our contact controller, there's an upload method. You'll also notice that this approach requires a lot of integration with the blob storage and queuing all in one. So this mixes a lot of the implementation details of how our application is built. So it's really tying this ASP.NET Core web implementation to our data storage. In this case, we're using blob storage for images, but we've extracted out the database and stuff like that. So the application doesn't really care where you're storing the data. It just says, give me the data or save this data. So let's do the same thing with our image. So first, we got to really see what we are doing. So for the most part, we are uploading the images. So let's start off with creating a new interface, and we'll call it image manager for now. We might have to rename it, but I think that will suffice for now. Image manager. And let's create that as an interface. Yes, I'll add it to Git, and let's do, first thing is public, and then this should be over here in interfaces. Plain, so let's fix that. And what did we want our first method to be? Let's do save image. So we're going to do public, let's do string for now, because we're going to want a fully qualified path to the image. Save image. And then another interface called get image URL. And I'm just guessing right now what we need. Might be complete. Oh, I don't need the public modifier. habit of typing the classes. Okay, so now we have that. We should create a context.image manager. So let's do that now. We're going to add a new project. I think we're going to do .NET Standard 2. I think that's what I did for all the classes. Let's call this context.image manager. Create. Rename this class to image manager. Yes, I know it's a double repeat. Don't really have another name for it right now. And this class is going to implement the image manager. I did Alt Enter to show that it's there. Now it's saying I need to implement those two missing members. So let's go and implement those. Click OK. So now they're there. We're going to probably ultimately want to put test cases behind this and everything. Let's just get the images to work right now. So what do we do for saving? Let's go to contact here. And I'm just going to copy out this for now, and we'll paste it inside of our image. Now, for the image manager, we can do it similar to what we did with the contacts. Like we have this repository, and then we have these data repositories that kind of implement that. So this contact repository needs a contact data store. We can do that. I think right now the image manager is fine as it is, meaning I don't need a separate repository for it because we're only going to keep this stuff in Azure storage. If later on we want to move it out and maybe do it back to a file system, then we can implement the different storage locations like we did with SQLite and Server. So for now, we'll just do the manager, and I'm going to paste this in here. All right, switch between my Windows PC and Mac, and the keyboard shortcuts are slightly different. See, they're really different because its control key is not working. What is the matter? Copy. I think the control key on my keyboard is. Noticing that lately. Okay, so we'll want to first start off with making this asynchronous. So let's go back and do a get, do a public task of string, and then follow the conventions async. And yes, thank you. Add that reference task string get image URL. And this one I probably really shouldn't do because I don't know what we're going to do this one yet, but I already have it written there. So these are going to complain until I fix them. This is going to return a task of that. Yes, insert that and public task string get image URL async. And now it's not complaining here, so let's add this await because we are going to have, oh, sorry, async, since we know we're going to have some other things. Now this image manager is going to want a blob storage and we're not going to do this contact stuff for now, so just put a to do that we're going to get rid of this to remove, because this is actually going to save the image, and then we'll have to update the URL afterwards. So remove and put in controller, and we got this other to do here, to do create the message for thumbnails, and remove for to do save the record. So in order for us to do that, I need a blob and I need a blob and the upload stream. So I'm going to put this other code side by side so we can see what else was happening. So split, move right. I can minimize you for now because we don't need you. The first thing we do is get the file extension and file name, or we build a file name for it. So I am going to need a file name, but we can do that off the image itself. So I need the actual stream, which is upload file stream. So let's do that. Stream. Call this image stream. Import system.io. So that's working. So we need to build a file name. So if we look at the file name, we essentially, we actually use the uploaded file for that. Let's see what iForm file is of type. Content type, disposition, length, name, file name, has a method called openStream. Let's do this. Let's create a stream and give it an actual file name, and we'll set that equal to null. And if the file name is null, we can generate one. We don't really care what the file name is. We were creating a file name based on the contact ID just to make it easier for us to see it. But from an implementation standpoint, you really don't care what it is. I want you to save it and come back with something. So in theory, we can check it. If string.is null or empty file name, let's create the file name equals new. Let's just do, or actually GUID.new GUID dot toString. So we'll give it a stream. We'll give it the file name based on that. But we also need to know the file type because we need to know whether or not we should append a JPEG or .jpg or TIF, depending on the supported images. So I have to take this out. That one's done. So we need to do determine file extension. Okay, so assuming the file extension works, this gets changed to image stream. And then everything else should be good for this. So we need to still import the blob for it. So let's get that taken care of. We are going to need public image manager. This is going to need a blob. See if this is smart enough to determine my package. Yes. Needed blobs. That will install in a second. And let's do a private read-only blobs. Call it underscore blobs. And set underscore blobs equal to blob. Or blobs. So got that there. Let me go fix this so we get some of the other reds, like this red, to stop. So we wanted a stream and an optional file name. So let's do that. That should work so far. All right, complaining anymore. So now the info is good. And we need to build out the URL, but that's more of an implementation detail. We should be able to build out the reference to it from the blobs data. So I could, in theory, do blob client dot name, and then account name. So I could do var image URL equals, and then this would be this underscore slash. Actually, we want account name and close this so it stops complaining. So this should be underscore blobs dot account name. And then / and then the file name afterwards. That should be the fully qualified file name for it. But that doesn't get us the URL to the blob storage. I think that just gets us the first part, but we can double check that as we go. Let's put a breakpoint here for now. This we don't need. Let's go check this out. So let's put a to do keep this, to do remove this, to do remove this, to do replace this, to do remove this. And to do keep this. Okay. So image URL is good. We don't need this, so I'm going to get rid of view. Now that we have this done, assuming the save was done, but I don't, what is blog contact info? I don't remember what comes back in here. I think I can just check for this to be not null. I remember what it returns. Let's just assume it works right now. We'll probably want to put better error handling around this as we go. Let's assume the URL is correct. Now we need to create the thumbnail. So I need the cue for this too in order for this to work. So this should be cues, which I think is in my library. Yes. Cues. Underscore cues equals cues. Now let's see if you're smart enough to create my variable for me. I think the create variable. Yes, it did. Didn't do the read-only part. So we'll complain about that in a little. That's cool. So now I have that, the underscore Q. Should be fine. I don't know why I actually called that Q's. I think I actually only wanted the Q back, right? Double check here. What am I passing in? Blobs. Oh yeah, Q, not a Q. So the wrong thing. This should be just a Q. And you should be a Q. Should be a Q. So now I should be able to add the message, and I should be able to, I can't add the message yet because I don't know the container name, but I got the container name from the blob that was passed in. So I can do underscore blob dot blob client dot container name. So I don't need you anymore. I need the contact ID. Why did I, oh, I need the contact ID because that's what we used. Let's double check that to make sure in the function that that's what we're using. I think we actually got away from doing that. Well, let's double check. Let's see if I use the contact ID somewhere. Image to convert. See where you're used. Make this a little bit bigger since I'm using the contact ID there. I'm using there. Actually don't even think I'm using it because I think I just take the file name and turn that into the file name. Image to convert. Contact ID. Yeah, I just take the name and save the name for it. First image, save it over here. Image name. Where did I get the image convert? Image to convert. Where did I create? Oh, I just used the file name that it came in. So the contact ID is really only used for updating the message. So I can actually delete that if we want. So let's go take a look at the contact manager. And I don't need that. So I'm going to have to go to the message and delete the message here. And that's going to break image to convert, or the Azure function that does the conversion right now. So we'll just ignore that. It's going to be red for a while until we fix it. Okay, so message is there. Add the message to the queue. I think we can just return the file name upon success. Oh no, we want to return the image URL to it, not the file name. So let's go and do, oops, don't want to do that. Let's go in, return image URL. That's what we really care about. Where do we save that to? And that should be the fully qualified name to it. We might need the account, but again, we'll fix that up. This should return the fully qualified image. And in here, get down to this, we are just going to save it. So I'm not going to inject that. Actually, I guess we could inject that here because it has everything we need to physically save it. It doesn't make sense for us to do it the way it is. This is assuming that there's only one blob, and we are actually going to ultimately do two blobs because we're going to do one for the image, one for the what's the word I'm looking for? One for the main image, and then one for the thumbnail image. So we can actually just pass it in the settings and then we can create it, but I'm not a big fan of passing around settings. Ultimately, we want the app to compose where everything is coming from. So we're going to want it to tell us where the blobs are coming from. So ultimately, we're going to need to create a blob or a blob. Actually, this could just be the image manager, and then we can create another one for thumbnail manager. How do we want to do this? Because ultimately we want to take the Azure function here And this part, all this here, we're going to take out and move into a different manager. All that here. So we could, in theory, have a thumbnail manager because that's going to have the intelligence to go and save it and retrieve it. But at the same point, you can put that inside the image manager and make it a true image manager. But then we would need the container for us to store the thumbnails and retrieve the thumbnails, and a container for us to store and retrieve the regular size images. But, you know, really what you could do if you want to be super weird about it is you can have a true image manager that just gets and saves, uploads, and returns images, and then this other manager that takes care of thumbnails. But I think that's a little complicated for this, so let's just go with one image manager that takes in a thumbnail storage and a image storage. So let's go and do that. So we are going to create a new interface. Call this image store. And this should have a task string. Save image async. I think we just want a file name for it. And task. This one actually don't even think we need a task. I think we could just do it. Get image URL async. Oh, this says get image is not going to work unless we have some kind of identifier. Actually, I don't even think we need the identifier because the database should know where we saved it. This is really just to save it. Although we could create a task string called get URL root, and that will return us the container name and all that stuff. So let's do that. And inside of our image manager, we are going to create we're going to create, actually, we're going to need two more interfaces. If I have this right. And we already got the image store. I'm thinking we need one for thumbnails, but it can really just inherit from this one. Or let's do this. This might be overkill and I can just refactor it out later. I contact image store. No, call it contact. I think we could just get away with that for now. But we're going to need 2 other image stores. This is the part I don't know how I'm going to do right away. So let's call this a image store. And then we're going to create a thumbnail image store. And then we need to create a thumbnail image store. Now, technically, both of these can really just inherit from one for now. Actually, we could do that too. But I don't want to do that because the thumbnail implementation is going to be a little bit different. So now we have those. Our image manager is going to need a this signature changes now to an image store and a thumbnail image store. This goes away. Private read-only image store, score image store, private read-only thumbnail underscore thumbnail image store. Score image store equals image store underscore thumbnail equals thumbnail. Okay, so now this is going to change because this is getting way too complicated, Joe. Way too complicated. Because so originally we were intending this to be blob storage, and now these are going to handle that. Well, in order for me to do the image store, I need to know where you want me to store this. Which means I need to create a separate blob container repository so that it knows where it's going, because the dependency injection container is not going to know which blob to get it from if we just create generic instances of the blobs. We need to be more specific. What I mean by that, if we look at our startup here, we look at our blob configuration, essentially we're only configuring one blob account. So we can use the generic, hey, whenever you want a blob or blobs, this is what you're going to do. Well, in our current scenario, for this, blobs actually works because we're only going to do one. But when we go to the Azure function, we need both blobs and the other blob. So we need to know where it's getting it from and where it's saving it to. And right now, all that is quote unquote hard coded because we literally create all that stuff at startup. We're not injecting the blob, which is what we really should be doing, especially if we create this. So let's go back. Hey Sam, thanks for showing up. It's pretty late by you. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. I didn't notice your posts. I get too focused on the screen and doing a lot of talking to myself. How's everything? A little role reversal. You get to see me for a change, and I don't get to see you. So let's see. Now that we have this, or let's go back to the image manager. So do I want to create? Maybe we do actually want to create these image store and those where, oh, but we still need to pass in the blob, which means we need to know where those things are coming from. This is where I struggled last time trying to figure this out, or last time I was thinking about injecting the blobs, because I really don't have a easy, solid way to identify them. So we've been just passing around the settings to identify it. So let's see, if I create this, or it's an image store, I could, for dependency injection sake, just create we got an image store and an thumbnail store, but both those are gonna, so I need something to uniquely identify the blob. So I need to create their own repository. So let's do, we're gonna keep you as that, and I'm gonna create new interface and call UI thumbnail store. Call that image store, right? Yeah. Store. They're going to be an interface. And add. And let's copy these two methods for now. So this will allow us to get away with doing what we want to do with it, which is, now we could, in theory, inject these. Because here I can say I still need to know what blob it is. Image store is going to inherit from image store. Thumbnail image store is going to inherit from that, but both of those need to know what blob account they're going to. And I don't know what tells it differently unless I hard code the blob storage in there. Oh, I'm at a loss what to do here. Let me just think out loud. See what we have. So we have this image store coming in, and this thumbnail storage coming in, which is what these things are. Or you can think. Don't need to make it abstract yet. Few blobs here. Oh, I think I know what I can do. I think I can do this. So let's do public image store. You're going to want blobs, pass in blobs for this. Do underscore blobs, equals blobs. I should be able to do that because then in the startup here for the images, we can do services dot add singleton, and we're going to do of type image store and do what I call it here, provider. And we're going to do new blob settings dot, actually do this whole bit right here. I think I can do just var blobs equals, I gotta do the element. Can do this. Why is that containing? What am I missing? More extra. Nope. Arm alignments equals that, semicolon. Return new image store blobs. I think that would work. What do I do? 3-finger shortcut. Semicolon. So I think I can do that. Then I could dictate the blobs. I should be good to go. It'll know to just pass in this instance of the blob for it, and that will work when we go to container. So we're good there. And that would be the same here. So I can just, let me copy paste this. So thumbnail storage, change the name. So now this should be able to do it. Yes, edit reference. Now I should be able to inject those here. So ultimately in our contact one, let's put you back into main, opposite group, and close you. So now in here, I don't want to inject the blob anymore. I'm going to keep the queue there for a second. But I now want a private read-only image store and call that image store. Let's add that to the end. Image store, image store. And we're getting rid of the blobs right now. And do underscore image store. Image store. Now our blob is going to be complaining below. So this now becomes var image URL equals await underscore image store dot save image async file name. I will need this stream. This, so I'll have to modify that. Oh, we're going to make this optional. So this should be here because we really don't want to pass it in. We want to generate it. Just keep that as null for now. This comes out. Once the image URL is done, do this. And we're going to remove that and then save it. So this chunk we still need to remove, but the image manager will take care of saving that. Actually, do we want it? We don't want an image man. Well, I guess we can do an image store also, but I'd rather the image manager take care of that. But again, we still need to clean this up a bit. Although technically the save image would do the same thing. Okay. What else do I want to do? Trying to think if we want to go further and clean this up. At least we got the basic shell going now. And maybe tomorrow night or Thursday night, we can come back in and really clean this and wrap this up. I think that'll be good for now. Let's wrap this up. We'll come back tomorrow or Thursday and finish, hopefully, implementing this. So Thank you to those that watched, and I will see you next time.